Hello, welcome to First Friday in March, our first Friday in March. We are so excited to have you all here joining us with Sunniva, Brynnel, and Hale Abgari, who's also going to be helping me in the interview and talking and chatting about what's going to be happening next week. And then Hale, thank you so much for joining us here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the Ukrainian vigil that's going to be going on Tuesday?
Yes, thank you so much. I hope everyone can hear me there. I sent an email already to the VAPA, so most of you probably received the information, but one of our colleagues, a professor in the biology department, Professor Olesnitsky, she has organized a vigil for people of Ukraine. She has Ukrainian roots. She's from Ukraine, and she has cousins there that she has lost touch with, and she doesn't know what's going on with them. And I know at a time like this, everybody wants to do something to show support and solidarity. We can't change the situation completely, but it does mean a lot for you to come forward and help her out. She is especially looking for singers, and as you can imagine, it's very hard to get something like this organized on such short notice. To singers to participate in some Ukrainian song, something very simple. It doesn't have to be perfect, but to show support and celebrate Ukrainian culture. So if you could please reach out to her. If you don't have her email address from the email I sent, contact me and I'll get it going. It's on Tuesday evening, March 8th at 6:30 p.m. at the El Pomar Plaza. It's a candlelight vigil. So please contribute if you can and participate. We would all really appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to now introduce our wonderful guest artist, Sunniva Brynnel, who is coming in, zooming in from actually, you are in San Francisco area, Oakland area right now. So you'll be visiting us from relatively close by, not coming all the way from Sweden next week. It's wonderful that you're here in the States. We've been talking about this for quite a while. And you are an accordionist, a singer, a songwriter. You work with improvised music, folk music traditions, and devotional music, plus a lot of other variety of music. And you come from a lineage of women singers and musicians. And we'll talk a little bit about that, hopefully. And you tour all over the world. So we're definitely going to ask you some questions about that and how COVID has influenced or changed your career. And you've performed all over the world. We're so happy to have you here. You've played with so many incredible musicians. And you not only got your degree in folk music and Irish music, Irish traditional music, but also jazz at Leeds. And then you went to NEC, here in the States. You went to sorry, I know NEC, but I'm having a hard time coming up with a contemporary improvisation, right? Is that what you did? Masters of Music in Contemporary Music at the New England Conservatory. And so you've been all over the place. I know you from deep listening, so I'll be asking you a little bit about that. But mostly I want to turn it over to Hale right now, who might want to ask you some questions about your past. Sunniva, we're going to just give you a warm welcome of applause. Just say thank you so much for coming.
Hi. I wished I could see you all.
Oh, I know. I should try to if I didn't have so many cables, I would turn my computer around. It's a really pretty hall you'll be playing in here. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Meeting.
Fortunately, we will be meeting in person in a couple of days and working with students, which I'm very much looking forward to. So thank you making time to do this, Sunniva, so we can get a little introduction to you before we actually start doing hands-on work together. So looking at your biography and your experiences, you've done a lot of traveling, I see, and you've been immersed, obviously, in Swedish folk music, through your lineage and your family, and your work, but I see that you've traveled so much to places, done a lot of work in Ireland, but also Norway, Denmark, Slovakia, Estonia, France, and Hawaii. I see. Good place to pick in the US if you're going to go anywhere. So I'm just wondering if you have, found common threads between folk traditions from these different cultures, how they connect through it, and also differences, like what common elements, if there is like a social significance within one culture that's different from another, or again, if there are universal elements that you see crossing over.
Like music theoretically, what I find in the cultures that I've studied that are primarily Scandinavian and Celtic, there are certain aspects that are similar, like the melodies might be often modal or diatonic. They don't modulate a whole lot, and they might also be pentatonic, like in the Celtic cultures. There are simple scales that are easy to sing, easy to play, maybe on flutes, that sort of thing. So nothing 12-note crazy in any of the cultures there. I do find similarities, but also differences, and I usually say when I teach music, it's like most of the time, or often, it's the ornaments that kind of make the dialect. In a sense, we can have a melody going da 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 da, but if you do it la da da, it might be like a little bit of like Celtic singing. But if you do, I don't know, I'm not a Balkan musician by any means, but they would have much more chromatic ornaments, for example, that may step out of the scale. So there are differences and similarities. One thing that I do find comparing Scandinavian music with Celtic music is the time signatures. So in Scandinavia, we have an awful lot of 3/4 time signatures, different kind of 3/4s that are waltzes, polonaise, polska, and in Irish music there are the jigs in 6/8 and reels in 4/4. Of course, they also have waltzes, but Scandinavian culture is much more based on 3/4 music.
And do you find, as far as the community side of making music together, because again, folk music is music of the people, most of it is passed on orally, some of it is now notated, but as far as how people engage with it from different cultures, and like a lot of them are not maybe trained musicians, people who have again been carrying these traditions, do you find again how similarly or differently these cultures engage with music and how it's integrated into their lives, how they celebrate it? Which cultures are like more, involve music in everyday aspects of life, from like funerals to celebrations to whatever?
From the experience again where I've lived for a long time, which is when I was 19, I moved to Ireland to study Irish music in Dublin, and there the Irish people are so proud, like they have to be very proud of their heritage and their country, and so I find that there it's like huge to have Irish singing, and also the pub music and the pub sessions very deeply integral to their national spirit. In England, where I was for 5 years, it was, in my experience, they played more kind of Irish music almost, although there is an English folk music tradition of Morris dancing. You might want to check that out. It's kind of funny. People dancing around with bells on their legs and handkerchiefs in their hands and sticks and swords. So there was maybe more of a divide between the folk music scene in England, of English folk music, and everyday life in England. There wasn't as much as in Ireland. And in Sweden, there is some sort of seeping in of folk music into daily life, especially, celebrations, funerals and weddings and baptizings and so on, and like our national celebration of our National Day, which is on the June 6th. So there is some, but not as much as maybe in Ireland.
Great. Jane, if you want to ask some of your questions, we can alternate. I do have more questions, but we can go back and forth.
No, actually, why don't you keep going? Because I'm going to be talking a lot about, the present. And so I think it might be nice to kind of focus the first part on, the traditions and whatever questions you might have, Hale.
Okay, well, just jump in and stop me.
Okay, sure.
I have to say this is very interesting because I don't know what you're going to ask. So I'm sitting here like do you say on needles? It's like, what's it going to be? What do I have to say?
We're not asking any kind of things that would incriminate you. Don't worry. So. We're just curious about, your work and again, what you've learned through your studies and your work. So another thing that I see you've done is jazz studies. And I'm wondering whether you keep these in separate compartments or if you actually combine them in any way. Do you do any fusion? And also in learning some of these folk traditions, I teach an ethnomusicology class, so the question of the ethical side of it is also very important because you're taking, somebody's tradition. If it's not your own, you have to be respectful of it and not culturally appropriate. I wonder if those questions play into how you do them. Do you try to do them pretty much how they've been passed on? And again, it's different, maybe your own heritage versus someone else's. So sorry if the question got a little bigger than I wanted.
I'll divide them into two. I'll divide the jazz fusion folk into one section, and then the question of like how I appropriate or not when it comes to folk music. I will say that most of my folk music that I learned is from people. So if I travel somewhere, if I go to Slovakia or I go to Hawaii or something, that I will try to meet someone who's from the area and has some sort of connection to the tradition. And this is really it's difficult to say who has an authentic connection to tradition, because we also I don't want to exclude anyone saying, well, only because you don't know where this lullaby is from, it isn't, for me, you can still sing it if you love it and respect it. But I will try to only take to heart songs that I know I've learned from a person from a place, and that also makes the song or the tune much more real to me if it's from a person that I can connect it to and say, well, I learned it from this person, so I want to kind of lift up and highlight this person instead of me saying this is a Slovakian song that I know through no one, because it's not true. It's always connected to someone. And I'll take less liberties with any other musical culture that I'm not from. When it comes to Swedish music, I feel quite free in interpreting it in my own way, because I grew up with it, and so there's maybe less of a respectful approach, if you will. It's like if I want to fuse it with jazz, then I will, and I will have maybe American who play Swedish folk music saying, oh, that tune is called that, and I was like, oh really, is that right? I just learned it when I was little and I never knew the name of it. So it's like the Swedish folk, I think, is so deeply ingrained that I'm less concerned about being strictly detail oriented sometimes, and I can jam it much more and feel free with it. Oh, and
well, this reminds me, you've sent us some links, so this might be a really perfect opportunity to listen to some of your music.
I think the Night Tree link would be nice for talking about like a little bit of a fusion and a non-traditional instrumental setting for
the Night Tree. Okay.
Yeah, the Night Tree one. So this is my American group that we formed at New England Conservatory, and we were an honors ensemble there, and we toured we did 150 concerts in a couple of years during my master's studies, and I slept 3 hours a night for 2 years. I would not recommend it at all.
Yeah.
We wore each other out, but we're also the best of friends now.
Yeah.
So that's an original tune of mine, performed
great.
somewhere in the northeast of the US. And yeah, we're kind of fusioning stuff depending on our particular lineup.
Great. Okay, so let me share my screen. Wow.
Thank you.
I have questions related to that piece, if it's okay to jump in.
And
Just
actually,
go ahead.
Sorry, Halle. I think this band is actually an interesting example of exactly the fusion stuff as well. So I'd love to talk about the members of this particular band and the setting.
Oh, great. 'Cause that kind of relates maybe to my question, because I was wondering about, because you said this is an original tune that you wrote, so it's not a traditional piece, but also wondering the process of collaboration with your band members. How much of this was even written down, or you just played it for them? How much did they contribute with their own parts? What elements of jazz came in? Because you said this is a kind of a fusion piece, and how much they created their own parts, and how you developed this together. And would you do it with another group of people, or is this specifically for this group?
So the piece is actually, it's a couple of pieces, and that's super common in folk music to do sets. It's more common in Celtic than in Swedish. In Swedish music, we just kind of often go on and on in one tune and vary it a little bit. But it started out with, the one I started was my tune called Saraswati, and then sort of halfway through there was a little gap in the music, and we go into a G minor tune called Catharsis, and it's kind of a well-known fiddle tune in certain kind of Celtic scenes, so it's a real good one to have when you come to jam sessions, and that one is written by Amy Cann. So first it was mine, and then it was this Amy Cann tune, and in the middle of the Amy Cann tune there was certainly, like, you know, where the sax player and the fiddle player kind of went wild with each other from each end of the stage. That was completely improvised together with the percussion, and so it was like the gentlemen of the band like doing their little improv section. So completely non-pre-written. So what we have pre-written is the melody, and that's huge in folk music. It's like, instead of looking at it like bottom up with like rhythm, harmony, melody, we look at it, at least in Scandinavian music, melody, and then everything else kind of falls by priorities also lower and lower down the list. So melody is key, and we always, in Nitri and other places, we learn the melody first, and then the people are more or less responsible for the chords, like me playing the accordion and the cellist, also the bari player. We'd had some discussions of chords, but it's also interesting in this lineup where we have cello, bari, accordion, it can be quite open. So if we had a pianist or a guitarist, I think we'd have to lock together the chords more and predetermine them, while when we're only kind of dealing with one line from the bari, one or two notes at the same time from the cello, and you know, I can do full chords, but very often we kind of made it work through improvising what we heard tonally from each other, instead of saying you're going to do a D minor there and you're going to do a G there, and so highly improvised with melody as our motor.
Was any of it written down?
No. This is, I mean, I have it. If someone asks me, like, could you send me the sheet music of this? If, like, a contradance band in the Northeast, they might say, we want to play this for our contradances, could you send me the music? I will send them, but usually it's much more common to just learn it from a recording. And the way Nitri would rehearse, we would very often just, like, we would stand in a circle, sometimes with the lights shut off, lights down, turned off. Yeah, did I hear someone shout something from the audience? I don't know. Help me if I lose my English. So yeah, we would turn the lights off, sit in a circle, listen to each other, and like someone would teach the tune that they wrote or that they want to present to the band. And more, the more we played together and we were so tightly knit, we knew what to bring to the band because we knew what each player would bring to it, and we knew, oh, this would suit the percussionist really well, or this part here I want a sax line, and I know exactly how Zach is going to sound playing that line. And our lineup of double fiddle, cajon, percussion, cello, accordion, sax was purely accidental, because we just happened to be the people at the school that enjoyed Celtic music with a twist.
And I have a question about this way of learning, this oral tradition. Is this how you learned music in your background? Like when you started to play, it says like you started to play around 5 years old. How were you taught? I mean, were you taught in a group, sitting in a circle, listening, and just, or how was your education coming into music as a child?
Yeah, when I was very little, my mom would take me to piano lessons. These were like the 4 years old. Maybe I started on the cello, but I didn't like the bowing, so I gave that up. But it was more or less like formal piano lessons, playing kind of rock and like sort of classical or semi-classical stuff. Maybe when I was learning the fiddle when I was little, also a skill that I don't have anymore at all, or never had. I could never play the fiddle. It was like some folk music, but in my private lessons for a long time it was primarily kind of classical or movie theme songs or something like that. Especially in the piano. But from my mother's side, so she's a Swedish folk singer, and I would be with her from when I was an infant, lying in the middle of the singing circle when she was teaching, or when she went to festivals to perform. I learned to be a very quiet child. Like I don't know how I did it, but I would just sit and kind of do nothing or read a book or something and listen and sing along and be there. And I would sit on like a rucksack on her back. So it was a lot just through the oral tradition of being there all the time. That I learned from her. And then it wasn't really until I was 19 and I was living in the Swedish Midlands that has a really deep folk music tradition that I actually studied it more formally together with the jazz that I was studying at that school too. So folk music, my formal education also later was in improvised music and in jazz, but I've always taken care to search for the folk music of the place when I lived at these places, and I also found that those kind of jazz studies are kind of like hardcore, and I wanted to have that kind of hardcore education and keep folk music sort of informal.
Okay. So do you want to share any other music that this might be a good time to sort of talk a little bit about, some of the other, maybe the solo pieces, maybe there's a solo. Yeah.
Sure. The solo piece on that list is Hillgard Polskan. So Hillgard is the street that we lived in here.
What happened? Somehow my Chrome thing, my everything got turned off. I had it all prepared and then somehow it's off. So let me go back to my chat window and reset this up. So which one would you like us to listen to?
Let's do Hildgard Polskan. That's a solo piece just recording in our living room. Do you have the chat there down? When you listen to this, imagine that you're walking on all 3 beats. So the tune is in 3/4. And I think I might teach this kind of sling polska when I come next week to some dance students or some music.
Great.
Also. So it's like imagine a romantic dance, 2 people looking into each other's eyes and just kind of leading each other around a dance floor.
Okay. That is so sweet. And you mentioned that the melody comes first and then the harmonies. Are those harmonies yours?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And
Hmm.
and they are kept kind of simple, like they're in the key. And I hear a little bit of an echo, but
Oh.
I'll keep talking.
Hmm.
Yeah, they are my harmonies, and also, when I play these with my partner, for example, he plays the guitar amongst other things. He will put another riff to it or other harmonies to it, and that's completely fine. And it's nice because then the melody starts taking on another form and have different accents to the beat and the groove. And his groove is something like when he plays it on the guitar. Down, da, 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 down, da, 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 down, and then I play the melody on top of that, so it becomes lighter and kind of more flowy that way.
Is this piece purely instrumental, or is there also like vocals that could be included?
Maybe you will put vocals to that.
Okay.
It
You might regret that, but okay.
No, but it doesn't have lyrics or any vocals now, but we do have a tradition actually in Sweden, I should mention, that's called trall. Can people see the chat if I write that? It's TRALL, and it's our way of vocalizing non melodies without lyrics. So if I would tralla this one, it would be like dum di da di da dum da di da di da dum da di da. So lots of dum di da di da di da. So it's possible, but it also has a lot of small like da 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 da. So if you want to deal with the triplets, you can, but it's maybe easier to play on the accordion than to sing.
That sounds a lot like when my brother, when he was learning bagpipes, and when they talk about bagpipe music from Scotland and even in Ireland, they have they have the whole, it's like a whole language for this music, and even a certain particular kind of language for certain fingerings and things like that. So it sounds a little bit like this language that you're talking about.
It's funny because it's like it is quite specific. Like you can,
yeah, it is.
It's like dum di day di do di die. Like I wouldn't transcribe it word by word, but there is still a dialect to it, even if
Absolutely.
it's nonsensical.
Absolutely. Yeah. It makes total sense. Yeah. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, I know you from deep listening. How did you get into that, and how is it, or has it played a part in your creative work, in your artistic way of thinking or collaborations? How has that filtered into your work, or if it has?
Yeah, it totally has. I remember the first time I heard about Pauline Oliveros, it was as my job as a music journalist, because the editor-in-chief of this magazine was like, can you write something about Pauline Oliveros dying? And when was that? Which year was it?
That was 2016.
Yeah. And I wrote a little bit about Pauline, and I was like, who is this woman? I really, really wished I would have met her when she was alive. And around the same time, I was studying my master's at NEC, and in my, I don't know what it was called, like text score ensemble or something like that. It was a creative ensemble led by Ted Reichman, who's an accordionist. He started introducing Pauline's text scores. The horse sings from a cloud, for example.
That's the right one. Yep.
And I was blown away, and I loved it. And so then I started looking into how I could study it more, and I got in touch with you and the course. And maybe I graduated from that in 2020 because of the pandemic. We had to go on to Zoom lessons. And it's meant a lot. I think it's especially broadened my view on all kinds of music, and all kinds of music within my teachings. If I have a student who's struggling with something, I will maybe write a text score for them, or ask them to write a text score for themselves, or to describe the certain issue that they have. one of my accordion students just the other week, and no names mentioned, but he actually he was he wanted to move on kind of too fast, and he wanted to kind of it's easy to have a tendency to play too much, and we feel like we need to kind of prove ourselves or prove something. And I actually gave him the horse cloud piece to work on. So it's so nice to have it as a kind of foundation where music making springs from. There was a time in my master's studies that I had a little green book that I would write a new text score every night. Just it can be very lighthearted. Just write something. Because sometimes if you say play a free improvisation, it can be very wide and kind of not very focused. But if you write a little something, like a few sentences of a text score, it can suddenly have a direction and give you focus also.
Right. Wonderful. We're getting close to the time, so I was wondering if there's another piece you would like us to listen to that we can maybe talk about or chat about, or something that you want us to hear.
Sure. Well, then two options. Would you like a traditional waltz with a fiddle player from my area, or like a kind of devotional music song pop thing that's completely different from...
Hale had a thumbs up on that one. So that one is the original tune of yours, the Saraswati?
No, it's actually not. I'll have to pull it from Spotify.
Oh.
It's okay.
I never wanted to give up.
Let's put an accordion in there.
I never wanted to fall back down from where I came. I never wanted to give in, but there is only so much that I can say, and there is only so much that I can do today. I never wanted to give up. I never wanted to fall back down from where I came. I never wanted to give in, but there is only so much that I can say, and there is only so much that I can do today. Give me a sign of which road to take. Give me a hue of the color I should paint myself. Give me a sign of which road to take. Give me a hue of the color I should paint myself. Om Namo, Gurudev Namo. 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 Om Namo, give me a sign, Gurudev Namo. Om Namo, give me a hug, Gurudev Namo.
Okay, I think you've heard the gist of that.
Nice. Wow, that's so pretty. Now, was that a tune that you composed?
Yeah, this one I was driving on the highway in Sweden, and it came to me, and so I had to kind of keep singing it until I could pull over at a parking lot and record it onto my phone. And then it's produced and made in collaboration with a Swedish musician and producer who lives in Colombia. So that was one of our pandemic projects that we've been working on.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I wanted to ask you and we all want to know this here, how do you survive in this time? You know, what did you do? What some of the techniques or collaborations, or what new thing happened that might not have happened? How did you make all this work for you as a touring artist?
So what I found that both teaching on Zoom, was became more popular. So more people contacted me about private teaching online, which helped a lot, and still helps with a regular income. And then also just more people made recording projects. So in combination with me learning how to use Logic for my own recording and having in my home in Sweden, I live in the middle of nowhere in the woods, and so we had this studio set up, and I could just record myself and send recordings anywhere in the world, really, where people send me their tracks, and then I put accordion or voice on top of it. So that helped a lot. And then Sweden was... Oh, sorry, Jane.
Oh, I was just going to ask, were you used to recording yourself? I mean, do you already have that studio set up?
Yeah.
Or did you have to learn a lot?
I had to learn some, but I only know like the bare basics. I don't know how to mix or edit, so I kind of just send like a few good takes to people, and then they can do what they want with it. So they do that anyway. People always want something different than you think they do. So I just give them like a few different things that they can pick and choose from. But yeah, my fiance gave me Logic as a present, and I dove into it, and that was that. And I'm still learning, and I also started doing mixtapes for Swedish radio. So then, I can... Yesterday night I was sitting up doing an ukulele mixtape for an hour of my favorite ukulele music. It feels really empowering to actually be able to use Logic to the extent that you can actually like record and make complete mixtapes.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you managed to make collaborations work, right? You managed to just reach out to people like this artist in Colombia and all over the world. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something. If for making a living as a musician, don't be shy. Just like expect rejection. Email 10 people about grants or collaborations or anything. Like, I think I get to the point where I forget who I've emailed, so I don't even get upset about it. It's like when I hear back from people, it's, oh, great.
Yeah. That's so great. Yeah, I love that advice. Email 10 people about grants or whatever it is you're interested in. I have a question. Are you going to be teaching us some Swedish? Are you going to be teaching us some Swedish songs when you come? Yeah, great.
Swedish songs and Swedish tunes, and
great.
You don't need to know anything beforehand. Just come.
Yeah, I think that'll be really fun. Yeah, questions. Why is she in the Bay Area? Why are you? What's going on in the Bay Area? Yeah.
What's not going on in the Bay Area? It's the weather, but it's my fiance has a startup here. So he's Swedish, but he works back and forth between Berkeley and Sweden. So since I have an artist visa, I have friends that I record with here, then I take the chance to go, because I'm not a fan of the winter. And Swedish people are like divided in two. Some people love snowboarding and other people don't.
And you were just in LA recording. You want to tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, sure. So Night Tree, the band you saw first, the blonde girl there, she's now living in LA and making it big, playing with lots of pop artists. And I'm so proud of her. Lily Honigberg is her name. And I came there to record a couple of pieces with her that we're going to release in the next half year, I would say. They're being mixed now.
Oh, great. So you recorded with the same group of people or just with that?
Only duo, actually. And so this is nice because now we're
Was
making
she the violinist or the violinist? Okay.
the violinist. So we went into this kind of pop studio in the hills in LA and recorded that. That was fun.
Were you recording her music, your music,
Both.
or
So
both?
a piece each. One that I wrote for her, and then a piece that she wrote.
Oh, that's great.
Really, and this is also nice as a musician to combine playing in larger ensembles and playing in smaller ensembles because it requires such different skills. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. That'll be exciting. And when is that coming out?
We don't know yet, but
Okay.
maybe summertime.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Any other questions for Sunniva?
You can ask about Swedish food or something. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Anything. Has anyone here ever been to Sweden? Ah, one person is our tech crew.
Oh.
Who's saying,
I love schmore.
what is it?
Schmore? That's what they call it, right? The sandwich?
The sandwich? Schwor?
Sure. What's on it?
What?
It's like shrimp and
Shrimp?
oh, I don't remember.
Some kind of yummy sandwich with shrimp.
We have yummy shrimp sandwiches for sure. We do.
I'm sure you have a lot of seafood.
Absolutely. So yeah, in my area, this is also something when I come to Colorado, I'd love to teach tunes actually from my specific home area, and that's the West Coast. So
Oh, great.
east side area, and check out Gothenburg on the map for anyone who's interested. It's around there.
Wonderful. We will.
I can leave it. I can always ask more questions. But one thing I was curious when you were talking about trolling, I saw in your bio you studied some Indian music. Also, that's East Indian, and they also have syllables that they use for learning the tabla, especially drumming, that are very specific. I was wondering how far you got to explore Indian drumming, and if that was also anything similar to trolling. It's a little different. I think that's for actually learning the rhythms. But
Yeah.
anyway, I just wondered if you had experience with that.
So I have studied Indian music on and off for the past 10 years in England and also in the US. And it's kind of, there's an overlap between this devotional mantra music that I play on the harmonium and accordion. The syllables for the tablas, I don't know a lot about, apart from that it's like takita, takita, takita for 3 and takadimi, takadimi for 4. And they use certain combinations of that, which is a really great way to keep track on rhythm, actually. But for me, it was more about learning the tonal aspects, like raga content and the different scales that they use. So not so much. I've had my hands on a tabla or tabla drums, but I never play them, unfortunately.
Yeah, but you do play other instruments.
I do. I'll bring this one, which is like my the instrument I suck at. So everyone needs an instrument that they suck at.
Of course.
And
Not all of them.
accordion.
But it's fun that you're learning it and that you're willing to try it and to incorporate it in and find, new modes of expression, right, through new instruments.
For
So,
sure, and it also, if
yeah.
for anyone out there who writes music, just getting your hands on something new will make you write completely different things.
Yeah. It's like learning a new language or something.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any questions for us? I think we're pretty much coming to our time.
Ask someone if they have a winter coat to borrow me.
Oh yeah, we might. You might need funny that a Swedish woman will need a winter coat when she comes here.
This is no good for the weather you're having.
Yeah. I've got some coats that you can borrow. Yeah, thank you so much for being here with us. It was such a pleasure to listen to your music and to learn a little bit more about you and to advertise for your upcoming residency next week. We're really looking forward to hearing your music and hearing you sing and play. It's going to be really wonderful. It's really special.
I'm looking forward to meeting you all.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. Let's give her a warm welcome so she can hear you.